right, the Hardwood Huddle on air. Live technology.
Are the elves messing with your computer?
Yeah, the Hardwood Huddle.
It must be a South Pole elf.
Yeah. The Huddle. This is. All right, so I guess here we are, the Hardwood Huddle on the air. That is Bill Ingram, and I guess we've never had this many technical difficulties before in my life. My name is Randy Zellea, and we are the Hardwood Huddle. Well, thanks for coming into the huddle with us tonight to discuss the NBA. The NBA season is going to get rolling right now, and or at least on the 22nd. And Bill on the Western Conference tonight. And first off, how are you? It's good to see you. It's been a couple of weeks.
I am still COVID-free, and we're 1 week closer to Christmas break. So what can I say? It's, we're living the dream here in Dallas.
I apologize for the technical difficulties. I wasn't expecting that. So whatever the system was playing the joke on me again. I can play the opening again, but I don't know if it's really worth trying. But
apology accepted, Captain Nita. Oh.
So today, I appreciate any Star Wars reference you give us. I'm always very, very appreciative of. So it's good to say that we can honestly have the NBA Western Conference preview. And Bill, it looks like you have frozen. Your picture there is frozen. Unless it's me that's frozen, I don't know. But
I think it's you.
So I gotta. I don't know what I don't know what the situation is there, but if you can hear me and you can see me, then we're good. Let's roll with it, and let's have some fun for whatever this is for tonight. The NBA Western Conference, defending Western Conference champion Los Angeles Lakers, are looking to defend a championship this year. And I got to tell you, I was on the phone with a few people this afternoon. And I'm one of the few people who are not sold on their offseason. I don't think they really retooled their roster the best way possible. Obviously, the departure of Dwight Howard and Rajon Rondo, if this was 8 years ago, that would have been a bigger story than it was. But instead, they role players for the Los Angeles Lakers. Dwight Howard will be wearing a Philadelphia 76er uniform. Rajon Rondo has moved out to the Eastern Conference to the Atlanta Hawks. And if you look at the rest of this roster, Bill, did the Lakers help their cause during the
Well, I really like Dennis Schroeder. I think he's a player that's going to help them. I love his ability to push the ball.
Well-needed point guard.
Yep, absolutely. I would rather have him than Rajon Rondo, honestly. And then, with Marc Gasol, the question is how much left in the tank. We've also heard rumors that maybe Pau Gasol would like to rejoin the Lakers, come out of retirement. But Dwight Howard's a live body. He's not in his prime was early in the league. He's been out of his prime for a long time, but I wonder how much Marc Gasol can still contribute. Are injuries going to be an issue for him? So I like the Schroeder pickup immensely. I think they lost something in losing Dwight. It's not so much the Lakers did some nice things, but there are some other teams in the West who did more and who I expect will be much more of a challenge for the Lakers than they faced in Orlando in the bubble.
Yeah, and the one thing, too, about the Los Angeles Lakers, which I find very interesting, is LeBron James is a year older, and we also have a situation now where we have Anthony Davis signs a 5-year deal so that the pressure of a new contract is now off his shoulders. 5-year deal. You and I both were texting when we saw this. I don't think he's going to see the end of this contract.
Well, I don't either because, where's LeBron going to be in 3 years? And if Anthony Davis is left holding the ball with the Lakers, that's not a good team. Anthony Davis will be the best player on the Lakers this season. He will be, hands down. He is in the thrust of his prime, where LeBron is on the downside of his prime. And I think we're going to see Anthony Davis take ownership of that team, and it'll be great for the Lakers for him to do that. But the question, and of course, they're in win now mode. The Lakers are not building for the future. They want to get another championship this year and next year, and then who knows what happens after that. And every player is tradable, and every team in the league would love to have Anthony Davis if he's on the market, no matter what it costs. So when you're in win now mode, I think it makes sense. But again, I think teams, Portland especially, the Utah Jazz especially, in a season where it's going to be compressed and you have fewer games and the games count more, because I don't think the separation between the top seed in the West and the 8th seed, I'd be surprised if there's a 5-game separation between those teams. So every win and every loss is going to matter. And when you've got teams like the Lakers that have made a lot of changes, Houston has made significant changes. I think the teams that more or less stood pat or just made one tweak, like Portland, adding Covington, the rest of their core group remains the same. Utah Jazz add Derek Favors, who is only going to help them in the front court, where the only place they struggled last year, and they're going to be healthy. The teams that made the fewest changes, that know each other the best, will be able to come out of the gate hot. And I think that will matter more this year than when we normally have an October start and the first 10 games are kind of everybody's getting used to each other. We don't have time for that now.
Well, I think the teams that you're talking about too are Utah, Denver. I think those two teams are going to be the teams. And you know what? The one team you can't sleep on. We'll talk. Maybe we'll transition to them now. Is the Portland Trailblazers. Let's talk about the Trailblazers. Yeah. A healthy Damian Lillard, a healthy CJ McCollum, a motivated Carmelo Anthony. I can't remember the last time I said that out loud. A healthy Nurkic
and Covington.
And
Covington. You added an extremely dynamic player who can play 3 or 4 positions for your team. Who, I mean, my gosh, that was an incredible. As the Rockets were contemplating dismantling and rebuilding, they let a key part go before they figured out no one wanted James Harden. Like the Portland Trailblazers say, thank you very much.
Well, not only that, but they were the weird 8th seed last year in the playoffs. They were not your normal 8th seed. If they would have been healthy through the year, they definitely would have been a 3-4 seed. And
Absolutely.
The simple fact of the matter is they got healthy at the sort of weird time because they still had to mesh together. And if they would have been able to mesh together a little bit more, they might have been able to give the Lakers a little bit more of a harder time. I think the Portland Trailblazers.
If Damian hadn't got hurt, I love Portland. I really, really love Portland. Backcourt, front court, middle guys, depth, coaching. I love Portland.
Well, isn't that what we always say about them? When the wow, what's the right word? When the expectations are on them, they always seem to fall short. When they're coming out of nowhere, they're the team to beat. And I got to tell you, I think this is going to be one of the rare times that the expectation levels are going to match the success. I think that they're going to be there. We can go up and down the line, so we might as well. We discussed the Lakers. We just discussed the 8th seed, the Blazers. Let's talk about this Los Angeles Clipper team who, Ty Lue, we listened to him during his introductory press conference, and he said that one of the biggest problems was continuity with their team. Continuity.
I got to tell you, I don't want to be Ty Lue because you have committed a whole bunch of money to a couple of guys. One, Kawhi Leonard, if he gets a little sand in his shoe, he can't play. And Paul George, who you act like he's a franchise player, and he was before that nasty knee. And he was the Paul George who led the Indiana Pacers to the Eastern Conference Finals and would have been in the finals if the Spurs hadn't already won and the league didn't want two small market teams. That Pacers team should have been in the finals. That Paul George, yeah, they don't complement each other and they don't play enough games. Neither one of them. Paul's going to miss games because of injuries. Kawhi's going to miss games because his uncle doesn't want him to play or whatever the hell goes on with Kawhi Leonard. And the Clippers have basically allowed their entire team chemistry and their team culture to be completely degraded by the fact that they let Kawhi do whatever he wants to do. That's a horrible situation. And look, Ty Lue is not half the coach Doc Rivers is. So I think the Clippers are doomed. They'll make the playoffs, but they're not going anywhere.
And it's funny too. I had got this from, I'll let you take this for what it's worth, but when a player or an official comes out and says it, that there's a little bit of truth. There's always gonna be a little bit of truth in it. Well, you know what? There was a little talk of a certain player that's not there. Let me put it this way. There's a few people who will come out and say the team was divided in the locker room.
Well, no doubt.
The team was divided. The team was divided in the locker room because of the whole thing with Kawhi, the whole thing with Paul George not playing during the regular season. Ty Lue alluded to it a little bit. They had to work on team chemistry, and that particular player who stepped up is now wearing a Los Angeles Lakers uniform. So you can put two and two together on who that was.
Yep.
There's nothing to say. So I will say that I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the Clippers can do, because if they can actually get Kawhi and Paul George on the floor together with Patrick Beverley, they are a very decent team and probably the best defensive team in the league. But you're telling me that for 72 games that they're going to be out there playing hard and being there for each other? I don't believe that yet.
Nope, you'd be lucky to see them for 55. I mean, that's just – and when you've got the level of competition in the West, the number of teams that have gotten better, the undefeated in Orlando Phoenix Suns add Chris Paul at point guard. Portland is healthy. I mean, Utah adds Derek Favors. They're healthy. Where do the Clippers even fall? I mean, even Houston, if James Harden will show up for training camp and show up for practice and act like he wants to be there, Houston added some front court depth, not basketball IQ, but that's not been Houston's shtick since Olajuwon retired, basically. That's not fair. Yao Ming had a very high basketball IQ, Shane Battier, but in general, the Rockets have not been good for quite a while from a basketball IQ standpoint. So adding DeMarcus Cousins certainly doesn't help that situation. But you've got there's too much. In Cousins and Harden, you got two guys that have no conscience. They just keep shooting. They miss shot after shot after shot, and they keep shooting the same shots they just missed. But I don't expect the Clippers to be able to compete with the Lakers. I don't expect them to compete with Portland, Utah, Denver, teams that have an identity, that have chemistry, where the guys play hard every night. All of the guys play hard every night. I'm selling low on the Clippers.
Okay, that's fair. One thing Ty Lue was very, very good at when he was in Cleveland that he might be able to do here is help managing egos and help managing the stars and see how they do that. Maybe this will work. Maybe it won't. Let's transition to Utah, and let's talk about the Utah Jazz. And I got to tell you, the Utah Jazz is one of those teams where you just look at them and you're like, Donovan Mitchell, this is the year you wonder whether he's really an all-star or he's just a really good player.
Yep.
And he was great in the bubble, but will he be a superstar that leads the way to burst his bubble, so to speak, to get him into the second round?
I think the bigger question for Utah, honestly, is does Mike Conley fit now? Because Mike Conley was an outstanding pickup for them. I thought he fits their culture perfectly. He fits the Salt Lake City mentality perfectly. He doesn't see himself as a superstar. He's not too big for his team or too big. He's a guy that's going to play hard. If there weren't so many damn good point guards in the Western Conference, Mike Conley would have all-star credentials. And he led a very, very good Memphis team for years. So they have an outstanding small forward. They should be an all-star backcourt with Mitchell and Conley. You have the best defensive center in the league in Rudy Gobert. You've added depth at power forward. I love the Derek Favors pickup. If they're healthy, which they weren't Utah's going to be as tough to beat as anybody, and they can do it on the offensive end and they do it on the defensive end. This is a team that knows their identity. They have a culture. It's a winning culture. It's a positive culture. They're all on the same page, and that can take you really, really far, especially in a shortened season.
The funny thing is with Derek Favors, I know we mentioned his name a couple different times. One of the few guys who's a free agent that actually went back to Utah.
Mm-hmm. It's a testament to the organization. It really is. It's like Carmelo returning to Portland. Carmelo could have gotten more money somewhere else, but he went back to Portland. That tells you something about the culture of the Blazers. Just like Favors going back to Utah tells you something about the culture of the Jazz. He sees the opportunity to win there, and his skill set is something the Jazz needed. And he went, and I just can't overstate how good I think the Utah Jazz are going to be. But I mean, you're right. Donovan Mitchell, we have labeled too many good players in the NBA. We have labeled good players as superstars. And to this point, Donovan Mitchell has been kind of labeled as the next superstar, one of the next superstars of the league. And as good as he is, and as much as I love his the way he is off the court with the community, with fans, as well as how good he is on the court, he's not a superstar yet. Is he going to be? And if he has a superstar season this year, we could see the Utah Jazz in the finals.
And you know what? I would think they would be great, because I think it would be great for us to see a small market team. Now the question will be, will the NBA allow that to happen? And that's a whole other story.
Well, I think Adam Silver so far has not been as in control of that as David Stern always was.
Yeah, well, it was David
Stern was still alive and the NBA commissioner, we'd have seen the Celtics and the Lakers in the finals last year or earlier this year. I promise you that.
I think the NBA lost their mind when the Spurs played the Pistons in the finals, and they're saying, "Yep, never again." Yep, they said,
Although that was one of my favorite. Not just because I got to cover it courtside in San Antonio, but that was watching back. Remember the defense? I miss defense so much. That was a great series to cover.
Not only that, but here's our Robert Horry reference. He hit Big Shot Bob. Big win, Bob. Game 5. Gotta love it. All right, so that's all right. We had to make sure we got a Robert Horry reference in at least once a week at this point. Now, got to bring that back. So right now, the Utah Jazz, as long as they are healthy, Derek Favors is going to be a double-double guy for them. 14 points, 10 boards off the bench. That's what I think. Because let's be real, we've talked about this with a lot of people. The NBA, the big men rebounding thing is sort of like been a lost art. So there's no so he might be able to do 18 and 10 off the bench. Might be overstating it a little bit, but I think it could be happening.
The rebound for sure. Yeah.
Well, this is a team that I know. I'm going to let you read the screen when it comes up, because I know you have a lot to say. Wait for it. Here it comes. And all right, here we go. I know you have a lot to say about what I just put on the screen here. So let's
Well,
talk
as
about
a Rocket guy, yes, I do pay a lot of attention to the Rockets. They've made me Mavericks fans, is what they've done. Uh,
it.
it took a lot for the Rockets to make me a Mavs fan, but they've made me a Mavs fan. In fact, I was joking with a Western Conference front office executive when they made that deal trading Russell Westbrook for John Wall. I said, "Look, I feel sorry for John Wall. I just do, because he's a great point guard. He really is. I love John Wall, and he'd be great. I tell you, he'd be great for Utah. He'd be great for a lot of teams, the Clippers. But in Houston, where James Harden's too busy partying with rap stars to show up for training camp, he pulled that in Oklahoma City, and Sam Presti jettisoned him to immediately get out and don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way. Houston has not done that. But when you're trying to build, when your superstar, if James Harden is that, when someone who doesn't play defense, we can label them a superstar, I guess, or he has been labeled that. He's been MVP without playing defense. Okay. But when the guy who is the face of your team is doing that is his leadership style, is to be extremely selfish, and just basically throwing his own little fit very publicly. Where's your team going to go? Granted, John Wall said he had talked to James and he feels like James wants to play with him in Houston and all that. Okay, well, that's fine. But you've already added DeMarcus Cousins, one of the most unstable personalities in the league. Now you got Harden acting like this, failing to be a leader. Can John Wall pull that team together? And then they traded off Covington. Like, what a mess Houston is.
Yeah.
It would take a miracle for them. And you got a young, unproven head coach. I really thought they should have hired Stan Van Gundy. Nothing against Silas, but you need a firm hand at the wheel, a disciplined hand at the wheel. And Jeff Van Gundy wanted that job, and I think they should have hired him because he is a disciplined coach.
I think the result would have been the same, though. I think the result would have been the same, though, because once you all of a sudden remember from where you and I were used to being around in the NBA, where there's discipline.
Yeah, I
think the first sign of discipline, James Harden would have been like, "Trade me. I can't deal with this," and Jeff Van Gundy would have been, "Shut up, get on the floor." And I think the result would have been the same, and I think that's the downfall of the league is the coaches don't have control of what's going on the court. It's the players. And I think
Jeff would have killed DeMarcus Cousins. I think they'd be in the middle of a game and Jeff would just walk out on the court and just kill him.
Oh my God. Just imagine that Sports Center highlight. And there was a murder tonight in the NBA. DeMarcus Cousins was taken down by a little Jeff Van Gundy.
Here he is grabbing Alonzo Mourning by the leg to keep a fight from happening. And here he is killing. Oh man,
I'm tickled by the idea of that. All right, I have to ask you a question. I know we've talked about it a little bit on the show, but I think it's worth rehashing a little bit. Jeff Van Gundy made a comment around Thanksgiving during a game. Made a comment where he said that the players have to understand that the league is not about them; it's about the fans. And he basically was saying that the players have to get out of their own way and do what's best for the fans. And they have to understand that this is not their game anymore. And if the league and their coaches have to take the team back. The reason why the regular season is not important, it's because the players make it unimportant. If the players took the regular season more seriously, the fans will take it more seriously. So that's what we've been hearing from Jeff Van Gundy. Now, the NBA fears putting him back in any type of power as far as a coach is concerned, because just think about what would happen. He would, with any team he is with, he's a ratings grabber, and I think he's 100% on the money, but wanted to get your take on those comments.
Well, he's right, because what we've done is we have allowed the players to become the focus of the league. We've done that because we no longer identify a player with a team. A player is about himself, and the team is secondary. And I think social media certainly doesn't help that. But when you allow a lot of turnover, when you allow players to dictate where they're going to go, when you allow, let's say with the Clippers, the only way you get Kawhi is you have to sign Paul George too. And these are not complementary talents. And the Raptors said, go away. And they were almost as good without him as they were with him. The Clippers gave into that, and we saw what happened then. They imploded. Their culture is totally trashed. When you allow James Harden to dictate something on your team, and James Harden has no credentials. He's not respected around the league. He doesn't play defense. He's not a leader. And you're allowing Kevin Durant to make those kinds of things, same types of things up in your neck of the woods where, we're going to keep Kyrie Irving. Really, Kyrie Irving? Have you not seen? Didn't you sit on the sideline and watch Spencer Dinwiddie play last year?
Dinwiddie was a monster. He was a monster.
Dinwiddie starts for me. Kyrie can sit on the bench. Let's trade Kyrie. I'm telling you right now, and we've talked about it. But when you're letting the players have that much say, it's not about the players are the talent, certainly, but the coaches are the ones, the general managers put the complementary talent together. The coaches and the general managers should be making the call about what's going to work well together on the court and who's going to play what role on the team, not the players. That's never how it's been. And on the really, really good teams, we're going to see that rise to the top are the ones. The Milwaukee Bucks, granted they struggled in the bubble, but during the regular season last year, they were the top team in the NBA. They had a plus 13 point differential, which is unheard of. Mm-hmm. And Giannis Antetokounmpo doesn't run that team. He doesn't demand personnel decisions. There's no question who runs that team. So I think it's really challenging to see teams and the league kowtowing to the personalities of the players who are really good at playing basketball, but not so good at team building, most of them. Really, for the most part, the players are not good at team building. It's not just let's play with friends. That's not how you win. That's not how Boston's going to win. It's not how San Antonio won all those games. It's not how Portland's going to win. It's not how Utah's going to win. So, yeah, Jeff is always spot on. I always love talking to Jeff when he's not a coach, because when he's coach, he won't talk. But when he's in his role now, it's great to have a conversation with him because he's really, really bright about the state of the league and the players and how to win.
Yeah, and he's like you just said, he's right on the money. Let's transition out of the Rockets here because we are on that little time bubble here, and this is a team I know you're looking forward to breaking down. 3, 2, 1, and boom! Let's talk about the Phoenix Suns. Chris Paul.
The Suns came out. Hey, when you talk about that time off between the end of when the league shut down after the Mavericks and Nuggets played, that was the last game of the regular season. We thought until the bubble. There was no better team than the Phoenix Suns, undefeated. And then you add Chris Paul. So DeAndre Ayton has taken a huge step forward. Devin Booker has taken a huge step forward. And they got a lot of great complementary pieces. But now you add Chris Paul, one of the great playmakers of the current generation of playmakers. I just have to think Phoenix is going to be really, really tough to beat. Really tough. If Chris can stay healthy.
I'm not saying top 4 by any means, but I think they could be a definite 5-6 seed. And
they
this
make
will
the
be
playoff.
Yeah,
that's for sure. They make the playoff.
If you look at the 8 teams that made it in last year, because you had the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nuggets,
Rockets, Mavericks, Denver, Jazz,
and Thunder.
Thunder won't. I guess
Thunder,
we got rid of the coach. We got rid of all the players.
Remember the movie Major League? That's going to be the OKC Thunder this year.
Sam Presti is like, I want high draft picks.
I think I sent you a picture. It was the draft board with all the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then there's one with the Knicks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love it. so like the Phoenix Suns are definitely going to sneak in there. And you look at the top 8 teams from the West last year. Obviously, the 4 teams battling for the final spot in the bubble. So look at the top 7. I expect with OKC leaving, I expect the other 7 teams to be there. Because you look at the lower level teams. I think the Phoenix Suns, like you said, will take that Oklahoma City Thunder spot. I don't know if it's in that position. But you look, okay, so we've broken down. Let's quickly jump through the rest of the West because I know we're sort of on a short time frame for tonight. The Denver Nuggets. Let's talk Nuggets. I'm just going to call this the rest of the West.
I like Denver. There's a lot to say for continuity. And Jamal Murray, I thought, really took a step forward last season to help them get where they got. But I don't think they're a top 4 team this year. I think other teams made improvements that they didn't make.
Well, but let me ask you a question, though. And this goes to I call this the New Jersey net theory because after a little while, Jason Kidd got tired of being around the same guys and being able to only go so far. Is that the same situation with the Denver Nuggets where it's great your core group keeps coming back, but this is as far as you guys are going to go? He's going to get to the second round of the playoffs. So at what point do you say we maxed out? Let's start moving pieces and get to the next set. I usually think it's maybe a 4 if you're not winning a championship, it's a 4-year experiment. If it doesn't work within 4 years, and you bump away. And I think that's where Denver is. This is the make or break year for Denver. Especially if you're relying on Paul Millsap to make big plays for you in the playoffs.
Yeah, at his age, right? Because Paul's been a great player for many, many years. I've always loved Paul Millsap, but when your age catches everybody. And so I think
Mother Nature or Father Time is undefeated in sports.
Yes, undefeated. I think Denver needed to make a move, and they didn't. They need to make a major move. In Dallas, I say the same thing. Of course, Dallas is earlier in their process, but you needed another piece somewhere. Could be anywhere. Could be at small forward. Could be at power forward. You needed another piece. They didn't get it. So you're basically almost standing pat and saying, okay, we're going to stand pat with a team that didn't get there last year. Why are they going to get there this year when so many other teams got better? And
even in their own way, the Lakers got better too in certain ways.
They did.
Too.
The Lakers are better. The Lakers are better. There's no question. They're not leaps and bounds better, but they're better. Portland, I think, is a huge step better. But Denver and Dallas both needed to make a move. And Dallas, it's only because of injury. Kristaps Porzingis is going to miss 20 games. He's going to. He's going to. He's not going to start the season. And he's going to miss 20 games.
Okay, but you're saying that though. But Porzingis is a guy who now is going to be labeled as an injured guy because he was like that with New York. He didn't play a full 82 games in New York, and now he's like that with Dallas. So Cuban has to really, really, really has to consider whether this is the guy you really want to invest that type of time and money into as a number 2 to Luka.
Because
that's a real.
He's not going to be number 2 to Luka. He's going to be number 3. Somebody else has to be number 2. Somebody else who's going to play the majority of the games.
But who? That's the real question.
Well, you were supposed to get that person, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that person was available in this year's free agency.
Not someone who was going to go to Dallas.
I think next year's class you might have a better shot, but I don't know. I don't think there's somebody out there. I think for right now, you cross if you're Dallas, you cross your fingers. I do think that the series against the Clippers gave the guys who are coming back, that core group that they do have, confidence. I think and we'll transition because we've been focusing on one of these teams for Back Sports Page during the media session so far. But I brought this up to the Memphis Grizzlies head coach as well as to Dylan Brooks. And I asked a simple question, and I think this goes for not only the Grizzlies, but for every team in the bubble. For the players being isolated away from everybody and being with each other, were they able to develop chemistry that was able to carry over into this year's camp? knowing that you just spent how long, even if you were eliminated for not making the playoffs, you spent about 2 or 3 weeks in the bubble with everybody. You got to know your teammates a lot better. Isolation sometimes it's like you're in the crazy house. These are the people you're stuck with. And Dylan Brooks said, I went through 23 guys last year on this roster. Then this year, his first year, this year was good to come back with the same guys, knowing what each other likes, and we're going to be able to help each other on the floor. Memphis is a very young team. And I think they're like a little bit of a wild card team to see what they're going to be during the season this year. So
I like Memphis I would take Memphis in the West and Atlanta in the East and say you've got, although Atlanta made radical, I mean,
Well, when we do the East, we're gonna break down their roster and just go.
Yeah. But Memphis is that team that 3 or 4 years from now, when they've had another key draft pick and you've got Ja Morant, who's amazing, they've got some nice pieces. They're going to be the team we're talking about a couple of years from now, for sure.
If they stay together, and some of the questions I heard, like for Dylan Brooks, you scored 20 points 26 times last year and you were 20-6. What do you think we have to do? And of course he looks at the guy and just goes, I guess I have to score more than 20 points a lot more times. Just and I'm like, those are the questions immediately. Real quick, just wrapping down the rest of the Western Conference. Look, I don't think you really have to say more about the Oklahoma City Thunder than we just said. Sam Presti is really just like, I thought I did it last year, but I want to make sure we're not doing this year. So, and I know you're trying to explain to your fan base that you want to build for the future, but you still have to sell tickets. I guess this is the year to tank it because there's no going to be in the stand, so it's not going to affect your revenue anyway. So I guess that's the way of looking at it.
You say, look, we're building for the post-LeBron era.
Yeah,
when LeBron is retired, the other team we have to talk about is the Golden State Warriors. Because the Warriors are going to make the playoffs, buddy. The Warriors are going to be really, really good.
Well, no, not only the Warriors too. Let's talk about the Warriors 1 second. I'm sorry, but I just have to bring up one other team to you, sure. and that team is the San Antonio Spurs, a team that you're familiar with. I don't think they did anything to improve their situation. In fact, might have gotten worse by not moving Aldridge and bringing back DeRozan. Unless Pop. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Pop just looked very unmotivated last year. I think Pop knew going into the year this is not going to be what it is, and I'm just going to be taking a seat back. I think Pop is going to be missing the playoffs for the second year in a row. I think they have to do some radical changes. I'm sorry, let's talk about the Warriors now, but I had to get the Spurs in because you don't.
Totally right. The Spurs have 2 stars that don't fit, and they got to rebuild, and that's where they are.
Yeah. Yep. The Golden State Warriors is a very interesting team. Losing Klay Thompson, I like the moves that they did make.
Yeah,
it's a great move. I like the rookie center they got. I got Draymond, and they have Draymond Green back. They have Andrew Wiggins. So I think whatever scoring they're missing from Klay, Wiggins will pick up that. So I'm not too worried. Yeah. So like between both guys, they'll get that scoring. I'm more concerned on a defensive standpoint because Steph is not a really good defender.
Nope.
And Klay was the anchor of that defense. So them defending the 3 and being able to get, will they have enough rim protection? That's always been their issue since the Splash Brothers came to town. So are they going to make the playoffs? Absolutely. Again, who's the other team that's going to be knocked out? It ain't good. I don't think it's going to be, Utah. I don't think it's going to be Portland. I don't think it's going to be the Clippers. I don't think it's going to be the Lakers.
It's going to be Houston.
It's going to be so Houston. Okay. I guess. Well, I'll do my 5 final questions for you in a second of the Western Conference.
Okay.
Real quick. The Sacramento Kings. Luke Walton is going to be developing a heavy drinking problem this year, so let's just put that out there now. I'm just trying to think of all the rest of the teams that are.
Minnesota Timberwolves.
Minnesota. Okay, so Bill, this is a tough one for me with the Timberwolves, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but how much talent can you draft and not be successful?
Well, the problem is, and we talked about this. Jimmy Butler got there and spent about 3 minutes before he decided he needed to go somewhere else. You just don't
He's like,
have the guy.
he went, Tibbs, thanks, but no thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Karl Anthony, you have players throughout the league who put up great numbers but aren't winners.
Yeah.
And Karl Anthony Towns is one of those guys. And Jimmy Butler recognized that. And Andrew Wiggins puts up numbers. He's not a winner. Hasn't been. Now, maybe with Steph Curry and you've got a bunch of winners around him, maybe he'll become one. But the Warriors are not relying on him. Karl Anthony Towns needs to be the leader. He needs to set the tone, and he hasn't done it to this point. And yeah, you put up numbers. A lot of players can put up numbers, and they aren't winners. And I think he's got something to prove, as far as I'm concerned, because he's supposed to be their franchise guy, and he doesn't impose his will. No. He's Robin. He's Robin, right?
Yep.
But when you're paying Robin like Batman, it's awfully hard to get Batman. And that's where the Timberwolves are. They don't have the guy. They don't have the culture to win. And I hate to say it, I just think that's, when does Karl Anthony Towns land somewhere else? When the Timberwolves admit defeat on that.
I think he is Joel Embiid in a smaller market. That's what I think he is. And okay, so that's okay. So my 5 final questions, right? And here we go. We'll start with the obvious ones. Does James Harden finish the season in Houston?
I don't think so. I think his antics, if he continues to do what he's doing now, you're going to have to trade him. And that means the Rockets are really rebuilding, because what's left, you're not going to get anything great for him because you're over a barrel. Nobody's going to offer you. You're not going to get like Bradley Beal, or, you're not going to get a star player in return. You're going to get draft picks and young players, and you're rebuilding.
Yeah, I agree with you 110% on that. I think that the Rockets have to do something before the season starts, because you don't want to infect their locker room with this.
Completely. That's what a good GM would do. The Rockets don't have great front office management. They haven't had it for years.
The next question: will the Mavs make a move to add a third marquee name next to Porzingis and Luka?
What you have to do is you have to wait till you get close to the trade deadline for a team that has fallen short of expectations for some reason that we can't foresee now, whether it's an injury, whether they just come out flat and they decide they're going to move a key piece, and Dallas can jump on that. Because they know they need to add one. That piece, like you mentioned, wasn't readily available. Then Dallas has to pounce on that situation with whichever team that is that you can't see right now. Some team is going to be well short of expectations at the midpoint at the trade deadline, and that's where Dallas has to make their move.
Over under on the amount of games each play for LeBron James and Anthony Davis of the 72-game season, over under 58.
Over.
Yeah. Okay.
I think there's 60 plus 70 games. Anthony Davis was very durable last year. The only thing holding him back in New Orleans was health. He seems to maybe be past that. If he and LeBron play 60 plus games together, they will win 60 plus games.
And last question: Lakers repeating?
That's tough. They've got a lot of competition. Portland, I got to tell you, if Covington fits in there the way I think he's going to fit in, Portland may be the team to beat in the West. And I love Utah too. I think, the Lakers are going to have their hands full trying to repeat. I don't think they repeat.
All right. So that's the Western Conference as far as the Hardwood Huddle is concerned. Bill, let's tell everybody where they can find us.
Well, I'm on Twitter at the Rocket Guy, of course. And when I write about the NBA, I write about it at the Hardwood Huddle, or at backsportspage.com. And of course, the Hardwood Huddle is our podcast that we do weekly. And a lot of times we have really cool guests. We've got some that we're working on right now for the young season when it comes up here. And my personal blog is ishmaelslegacy.org, where I do not write about sports, but pretty much everything else.
And I'm at Randy BSP on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks for following the show. Sorry about the intro in the beginning, but you know what? We'll give it to you at the end
Randy.
here.
We'll blame Randy.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Accepted, Captain Nita.
Thank you, Lord Vader. For Bill Ingram, I'm Randy Zellea. Check out we're out of the huddle. Check us out on YouTube. Watch past episodes. We had some great guests. And Bill, we'll see you next week breaking down the East.
Absolutely. Everybody stay safe out there.
See you guys later.